There we go.
Okay, welcome to the September 12th, 2022 Town of Ithaca Board Meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Paulette. So we have two board members absent this evening, so just want to make note of that. And we'll start to see if there are persons to be heard for items not for which I think there's actually only one public hearing. So is there anyone who would like to address the board on an item not for which there was a public hearing? Okay. And any board comments before we start? Okay, the first item is we'll open the public hearing at 5:32 regarding the adoption of the Southern Cuda Lake Intermunicipal Water Commission, also known as Bolton Point, 2023 preliminary budget. This represents a 4.11 increase from this year between 2022 and 2023. You got the budget in the packet. Are there any members of the public who would like to address us on this topic? So I will see if I'll close the public hearing in a minute. Are there any questions from, well, I think I opened at 5:32. It's 5:33. I'm going to close the public hearing. Would someone like to move the adoption of the budget? Rich and Eric seconds. Any questions or comments?
I just had a comment, which is that it looks like the personnel expenses are broken down by department or function, and it would be helpful for me in the future to potentially see an aggregate of how, a total of personnel expenses. I didn't notice that in the budget, but I think it's just helpful to see how much of the budget is made up of personnel expenses. So,
and that would be easy to do. So we'll make note of that and mention it for next year. And if it's helpful, we can get that information to board members even now after the meeting. So, but any other questions or comments? All those in favor of adoption, raise your hand or say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Next is setting public hearings regarding two things. So it's in the same resolution. One is setting a public hearing for a proposed local law adding a vehicle length limit to Chapter 250. And this basically refers to limiting on Sandbank Road. The other public hearing is a proposed local law amending Chapter 59 for the Public Works Department to clarify duties and responsibilities of deputies, and also a new acting director of public work. So would someone like to move setting those public hearings, and they're being set for our study session? We thought that would be okay. So they're being set for September 26th. Would someone like to move setting these public hearings? Rich, and is there a second? A second. Are there any questions about these now? Rich?
Yeah, just two brief things. First, the vehicle length law. I wonder whether or not having a sort of weekly violation period is sufficient to deter traffic on the road. It says every week's occurrence would constitute a new violation, and I wonder for project-specific traffic people would just view that as the cost of doing business and probably continue to use the road for a week. So I wonder whether or not we can change that or should consider changing that to a daily occurrence.
And I don't know that we brought this up before, right? Because we certainly talked about it at Public Works. So this is a new thought you're having, Rich. And did Guy say, I don't think we even asked him that question.
No, we didn't. I remember it was in conversation when we were talking about different areas of the town, correct, Rich?
Yeah, what do we do in our sort of zoning, typically in our zoning ordinance? I mean, do we have different parameters for different situations?
I don't think so. I'd have to go back and look at some of the vehicle and traffic laws related to maybe exclusions. Is that where this came up when we went through those laws?
I assume. I just don't know, what constitutes a new violation. So I can get a ticket on a Monday and I can keep driving up and down the road all week long and it's all covered under that one ticket.
So Rich, maybe one way of handling this is, because I think if we make changes, we'd have to, I don't know if we'd have to set it. I don't know if we could set the public hearing tonight. We could still set the public hearing in it, even if we make a change. So is anyone opposed to making it more frequent than weekly? No, it sounds like not.
Bringing the hammer down.
I see Susan is, she's got a little, like, Susan, is there something you want to say?
I was just looking at the town code, our vehicle weight limits article in the vehicles and traffic chapter, which is chapter 250, and for offenses for violating vehicle weight limits. I'm just looking to see if it talks about the duration. I don't think it does. First offense, and it just lists the fine parameters and imprisonment parameters. Second offense, yeah. And a second offense within 18 months of the prior finding of there being an offense. Third offense, similar. So I think it's just by offense.
Yeah, I think maybe we captured that when we revised this, when we were talking about forced home truck traffic. So this was meant on 411, correct? I think the same question came up, maybe worded differently.
Is that to me or to the board? Because I haven't really been involved with
answer the question, right? To the board.
So we can, why don't we talk about this at management team to see if we want to make a slight revision. It sounds like we can still go ahead and set the public hearing for September 26th. Are there any other questions or comments people have?
Well, since we're setting public hearings for two things, I had a comment about the deputy highway supervisor. I guess we're creating the position. Let me just get that up. It does.
Yeah, and it's not creating a position. It's assigning that role to an existing.
Right. Okay. So I guess for purposes of what I'm about to say, that doesn't really matter. But I just have to find the right. I had a citation, but it seems to me that we've reserved the right as the board to ratify the appointment, and Town Law Section 32 doesn't confer that right to us. It just says that this appointment, the appointment shall be made by and serve at the pleasure of the highway superintendent. So I don't know that we can unilaterally confer that authority on ourselves as a board to ratify Joe's appointment.
You do that all the time? ratify the highway superintendent, director of public works. And it gives a paper trail to us.
I would ask that Susan look at the law and determine whether or not we have the authority to do that. It's possible that we don't have the authority to do that, and we've been doing it all along. The way I read the law, it's solely at the discretion of the highway superintendent, and it doesn't give us, unless there's something I'm missing, which is why I'm posing the question, it doesn't give us the authority to ratify anything. But it does after, if that position is not, if he doesn't appoint someone within 5 days, then the board can make the appointment. That's the way the law is written, and I have to find it. I'm sorry. There's so many documents open here that it's.
That's for the deputy highway superintendent.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that's for the deputy highway superintendent is the 5 days. This aspect of the acting director of public works is not the same thing.
Okay.
So,
And Susan did review this. So Susan, do you want to respond to which I think we're good.
Just what Judy said. I think what you're looking at is for the deputy highway superintendent.
And that's
we're
not
talking,
what we're just doing a deputy director of public works.
yes, and as it was explained to me, it's not, there's no formal job description, there's no civil service created position. It's just an administrative title internal to the town, so that if the director of public works is absent or unable to act, there's clear lines of authority as to who would act in that person's stead. The highway superintendent's duties flow to the deputy highway superintendent. So you'll see in the wording that the highway superintendent, or the deputy highway superintendent, does retain their authority. It makes reference to
then I apologize
highway
for
law.
conflating those issues.
No, those are really, really good questions.
so
Any other questions or comments? So I think we're just ready to vote. I think we've already had a first and a second for setting the public hearing. So all those in favor of setting the public hearings for, again, September 26th, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. So we've talked about the fuel station project at Public Works before. I think it was mentioned that we decided to look at a fourth site, which has meant going back to Barton and La Judas for a little bit of additional work, which means, of course, a little bit more money. So the resolution is to approve and authorize the supervisor to sign an amendment to the existing contract with Barton and La Judas for the fueling station design project. If you look at the memo, we did get some savings on some, but there is an increase. So it's a fairly modest increase that you're approving if indeed you approve it. So and I forget the timeline. I think this will happen fairly quickly in terms of them coming back with comments about the fourth design, which is basically where the existing fueling station is. So that's the fourth location. Would someone like to move the resolution? I'll move it. Is there a second? I saw Rich's hand up. Questions or comments? And I know that we made some slight changes to the resolution, but Paulette, that got sent out, right? The slight changes, everyone has the changes that Susan had suggested, correct? Okay.
Yep.
All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Next item is approval and authorization to execute an agreement with Granicus for services associated with short-term rentals. this is to help us make sure or find folks who are advertising short-term rentals who may or may not have filled out the permit. So we interviewed a few companies and we're recommending that we go with Granicus. We felt they would provide the best services. So this is authorizing us to sign, the supervisor to sign an agreement for a 3-year period. It's $8,500 a year. It doesn't go up. I think it stays the same for those 3 years. Would someone like to move this resolution? A bill?
I'll move.
Is there a second? Rich? So questions, comments? Bill?
Just for Marty, if he's available to answer. So when we were setting the fees for the permits, Marty, did we take into account a cost like this, or should we think about increasing our fees to cover this?
Yeah, I can add. So we are going to ask POC, personnel and organization, to look at the cost and increase that so it can include these charges.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're the village of Cuba Heights is also going to use Granicus. And so the city, I think they don't even have short-term rental law yet, but I know they've been having similar conversations with companies. And so we're hoping that a number of municipalities in Tompkins County may use Granicus. The county, I think, is also going to be looking at when their current contract ends, if they want to go with a different firm. So Marty, did you want to say anything? You were very involved in this.
No, I think you've covered it all. Thank you.
They do, I don't know if it says it in the proposal, but they do look at a number. It's amazing how many sites there are that you can market Airbnb on. I mean, a lot, scores. So I think this was one of the company that does, I don't know the number, 80, 90 different sites. Rich, do you remember?
According to their memo, that says 60 plus. So it's fairly comprehensive.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 It's unanimous. Next is setting a public hearing regarding an increase in the public interest order for the Ridgecrest Road Water Improvement Project. This came before the board in March, but we're finding that we need a little bit more money. And so it's around 170,000. So this is setting a public hearing for the, which day are we doing the public hearing on?
Study.
At the study, also on September 26th, okay. And this will be a roll call, and I'll move it, and Rich is seconding it. So thank you, Rich, for doing that. But questions, comments? Dan, did you want to say anything about why there's an increase in money?
Yeah, we had 2 bids from 2 excellent contractors, and I want to say they were only off by $50,000 to $100,000, very close. I know we're back here asking for more money, but considering the environment, the lack of availability of a lot of materials, we cost estimated this project pretty well. We were roughly, I think, 70,000 off, but we are including $100,000 in contingency, a 10% contingency on top of the bid, just for our internal typical use. Things come up during construction. So all in all, yes, we are back here for more money, but just looking at the conditions and the environment that we're working in, we feel that we're pretty close in this era. But that's really all I have to say.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? So I'll call on folks. Rich,
Aye.
Eric, Bill,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to the next, the Personnel Committee has been working on revising a policy related to drug and tobacco-free workplace. We do have some proposed changes to what was sent out, but I guess, Judy, a question for you is, did you have a chance to look at it? Do you want us to wait and talk about this in the next meeting, or you're okay? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, Susan and I went over them. It's just kind of pretty much the same language, just moving it around to make it make sense. And this is on the tobacco use policy piece.
And so we didn't send out the proposed changes, but I think I can quickly highlight just mention the changes. So tobacco use, we're going to put, which includes the smoking of cannabis. Because right now the Federal Tobacco Control Act's definition of tobacco products does not include cannabis. The other reason that we made these changes, that the statement, the smoking of cannabis is prohibited, is too broad because it includes offsite. So the minor changes are for those two reasons. Let's see. So yeah, we just added where the town defines tobacco products as adding cannabis, marijuana. The other reason that we made these changes, that the statement, the smoking of cannabis is prohibited, is too broad because it includes offsite. So the minor changes are for those two reasons. Let's see. So yeah, we just added where the town defines tobacco products as adding cannabis, marijuana. Paula, do you have YouTube open? Maybe we're hearing it. The statement, the smoking of cannabis is prohibited. Okay, I hate hearing.
Sorry, that was weird.
I thought there had been some cannabis consumption. I didn't know what was going on, personally.
I was checking it to make sure it was running because we've had some issues. And I guess if you
Apparently it's running.
automatically starts again. Sorry.
That's fine. And then we struck a sentence: smoking of cannabis is prohibited. Tobacco use, and added tobacco use also refers to the smoking of cannabis. So that probably didn't help you, but they're pretty minor changes. It was just trying to clarify some things. So Rich.
Does vaping count as smoking?
Yeah, that's included under tobacco use.
Okay. I want to make sure that smoking is the sort of umbrella that covers vaping.
Yeah.
And Susan, I know, had a very specific question to Judy in an email exchange today. Did that get resolved? Do you know what the question is, Judy? That was a specific question to you.
Yes, we talked about the FDA aspect of things. So it's easier for us to just do the town defines tobacco as, so.
Okay, but the question was whether, I'll just say what the question was. Do we also want to limit the use of cannabis in other forms such as edibles?
Well, yes.
So does this current policy that we're reading through, does it do that? Or do we have to make that clear?
I wouldn't say that the tobacco-free policy does, but the drug-free workplace policy covers aspects of marijuana. And that's just the use of marijuana.
So it's okay if in this particular one it doesn't, because this is more about the tobacco-free policy.
Yes.
Okay. Somebody had their hand up. I'm sorry, who? Bill?
Yeah, that might have been just addressed by what you're saying, but in the tobacco free, I was just questioning, and that that paragraph at the beginning that says tobacco products are defined by the FDA and then adds cannabis at the end. I was just wanting to clarify that. Is that what you were just referring to, that we're taking out the FDA there? Because I would assume the FDA does not define cannabis as tobacco.
Well, I read something that they did, but I couldn't prove it to Susan at that time. So it's just easier for us to say the town defines tobacco products to include cigarettes, blah, blah, blah. And then we added and cannabis, marijuana at the end of that paragraph.
Yeah.
And to be fair to Judy, she's off site right now, so she just doesn't have access to everything. But
Yeah.
We thought, well, we can go ahead and just say, the town is defining it this way.
Yeah.
So it may be the FDA does. I couldn't find it, but
Yeah, no, that works. That's all I was wondering.
And New York State is a state that includes cannabis under their no smoking laws for in restaurants, in public, all that kind of stuff. So New York also defines it that way. So not listing it as tobacco, but what is not allowed in their no smoking aspects of things in parks, restaurants, that aspect. So, which includes employers. So.
Other question, Rich?
I was just going to say the prudent thing to do would be to smoke a cigarette, then smoke a joint and see if they hit you the same way. But I actually do have a substantive question, which is that under shared responsibility, I don't know how to cite this because it's part of a larger packet. Under shared responsibility, it says employees must not be under the influence of alcohol, marijuana, or illegal drugs when they report to work. And so I wonder why we're stipulating illegal drugs. We don't want people under the influence of any drugs, whether they're legal or not, right?
That was a really long debate on how to say that they can take drugs, because of course we got, well, that means they can't take heart medicine. They can't take, so it became really big when we left in the legal drugs. So we're trying to address the illegal drugs and the legal drugs taken in an illegal manner.
Okay, but if you have a prescription for Oxy or something, you could be you could be under the influence and it would still be legal. Do you want someone under the influence in that context to be, at work? That's just the question. So I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Isn't there, if the objective is to prevent people from being under the influence, what difference does it make whether it's legal or illegal?
Well, because I can't oversee legal prescribed drugs unless it's one, and we do have a prescription drug piece that says do not operate heavy equipment or machinery. In that case, if that is what your job entails, then obviously we need to make sure that you don't aren't put in the situation of driving or operating equipment. So,
all right, as long as everyone's comfortable, I just had to raise the question. Thank you.
Anything else? I don't think we've moved and seconded. Would someone like to move the adoption of the revised policy tobacco? Eric, is there a second? Rich? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Moving on to the consent agenda. Would someone like to move the consent agenda? Rich moves. Is there a second? Eric seconds. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Unanimous. We did, I think you were sent a list of the correspondence. Any questions about the correspondence that was shared? Not moving to, I have just a few little updates here. So Paulette, I don't remember when the early registration fee ends for Association of Towns Conference, but it's maybe October. So if you know you're going to go, let Paulette know so that she can take advantage of that early registration fee. Of course, you were also sent all the financial reports for August 2022. At management team meeting on Wednesday, so the county has now put out their call. They're using some of their ARPA funds to fund, it's an RFP process to fund various projects around the county. It's called the Tompkins County Community Recovery Fund. Municipal governments are eligible to apply. So we'll start a discussion at management team meeting to see if there's something that we feel we should potentially put in a request for. If you haven't seen the link and don't know how to find it, let me know and I'll send it to you, because certainly we'll bring the board into this discussion as well. The board has talked about having a late fall retreat, so I want you to start thinking about dates. I'm assuming people like maybe early November before the holidays kick in, so maybe November 5th or 12th. People don't have to respond now, but I just want you to start thinking about probably a Saturday morning or a retreat. Right now, the tentative idea is that we would then wait for next fall to maybe do a joint retreat with management and the board. Maybe do those every other year. So be thinking about November 5th or 12th, and again, I'll send out an email about that. I think that Mike Smith confirmed the day of the farm tour. I don't have it in my head, but I think he sent out a date saying save this Friday afternoon for.
I think it was perhaps October 27th, the end of October.
Okay. We're hoping that some board members will join us on Saturday morning, October 1st, to plant some trees at the East Hill Preserve. I never get the name right, but I think that's the name of it. So we're going to order quite a few trees. We're hoping to involve the community. We're working on a press release and a flyer that will go out, especially for neighbors in that nearby the preserve. So you'll get more info. I just wanted to mention October 1st, Saturday morning tree planting. We're not sure what's happening with the governor's executive order. We're hearing that it's not going to be extended. Rich heard something. There was an article in, was it the Albany Times Union about that. So it does mean that we'll start having to have a quorum in person in the boardroom. So there's some committees that I think we're going to have to work with to make sure that they know that. So we'll know in the next day or two, but it sounds like it will not be extended, the executive order, to allow virtual meetings. Remember, we have a little bit of flexibility, but even with that flexibility, you need a quorum of board members present in, well, I'll just say the boardroom. It's easier to say the boardroom. So any questions about any of that?
I'll just say, so I just checked the emails and it's Friday, October 28th for the farm tour.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. Now, that does mean that when we move back to the boardroom, we'll still be under a little less than ideal circumstances because the microphones that we've ordered have been delayed again. We managed to do it when we were meeting there a few times last year at this time, last fall. So we'll just make it work. But know that for a month or two, it will be a little less than ideal until the equipment we ordered months ago comes in and gets installed. Other reports that folks have.
I don't have a report, but I had a question. I didn't want to pull vouchers for this. It's a general question about how the vouchers are presented. And there are many references to Card Member Services, Inc., credit card purchases. And I was wondering whether the items that are purchased under that umbrella are itemized elsewhere in the vouchers, or is that just sort of a catch-all and we just don't really know what is associated with those? I can go through the vouchers. I imagine there are receipts all right.
Yes.
Right. And, you know, of course, one thing that we've got, once we start meeting in person again, we'll be bringing those vouchers to have other
That's
people
really what I've missed the most.
I know you have, Rich.
So Donna, did you want to I saw a head shaking, but did you want to respond more fully to Rich's
No,
question?
I'm fine.
yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? We remember we're on target to have our budget meeting on October 6th. I think that's, what time do we start those? Or do we start at the 5:30 time or the 4:30? I think the 5:30 time, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so October 6th is our budget committee meeting. And then there's only one other meeting in October. It will be October 17th. Good, I was looking for Paula to confirm it. I got that date right. Anything else that we need to share today? Okay, well that 36 minutes. Wait, come on, we need to talk more. If nothing else, I will go ahead and close the meeting at 6:06. Have a good evening.